Hello and very warm welcome to English Med News on Med Noche. Here with you with top stories from Turkey and Kurdistan. A group of racists have attacked the HDP's district building in the town of Fethiye in Muğla province prior to its opening ceremony. The mobs shouted slogans such as "Here is Fethiye, there is no escape." Around 200 people gathered in the Salıpazarı Tuesday Market Square in Fethiye before the opening of the HDP district office, intended to march to the building. The group shouted slogans against the PKK and HDP and heads off towards the HDP office. The mob, increasing in size, forced its way past the police barricades and began to attack the office with sticks and stones. The fascist group has thrown gas bottles into the building and is attempting to set the building on fire. A delegation of the BDP, Peace and Democracy Party, and HDP, People's Democratic Party, went to İmralı Island to meet with Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan. During the interview, Öcalan said he will send an important message in Nowruz time. The delegation consists of BDP Parliamentary Group President Pervin Buldan, BDP Deputy İdris Baluken, and HDP spokesperson on negotiation and solution process and Vice President Sırrı Süreyya Önder went to İmralı Island to meet Öcalan. Regarding the meeting, Pervin Buldan made a press statement and said Öcalan will send an important message in Nowruz time. The last İmralı meeting took place on 8th of February when Öcalan stated that the government has grown away from the seriousness of the democratic resolution process on the excuse of elections.
Bütün hassasiyetiyle devam etmektedir.
The 8th of March, International Women's Day, was celebrated with various activities across Turkey and full part of Kurdistan. From Rojava to Ahmet, from Mersin to Raha, tens of thousands of women celebrated this day with joy.
Bana geri la, geri la, geri la,
Kurdistan Communities Union Executive Council Co-Presidency and Kurdish Women's Movement YEJA has issued a statement on the occasion of 8th of March International Women's Day, saying without women achieving their freedom, the construction of a democratic nation cannot be realized, and without the building of a democratic nation, women cannot live freely.
The KCK and YEJA message saluted the resistance and struggle of women rebelling against the capitalist system, drawing attention to the women's revolution in West Kurdistan. As this revolution spreads through the region and the world, women and peoples will become free. The KCK message continued, "We salute the women that celebrate International Women's Day every year on 8th of March and demand equality, freedom and democracy. We greet with respect this honorable resistance of women rebelling against capitalism, the most brutal form of the system of male domination." Undoubtedly, KCK said, 8th of March is not only a day that has been celebrated for over 100 years by the working women of the world. It is not right to categorize women as workers or non-workers. The value of women's labor cannot be measured in financial terms. Women are life and cannot have a price. Such theories have no meaning apart from providing a basis for the insidious exploitation of capitalism. Remarking that capitalism has made women into cheap labor, turned them into a means of advertising, reduced them to the status of a home child producer, in this way legitimizing and intensifying the enslavement of women, KCK said the massacre of women in the Middle Ages in the form of witch hunts was transformed by capitalism into the exploitation of women in factories in the 80s, destroying the very moral and political structure of society. The fundamental reason for the increasing violence against women is the anti-women policies of capitalism. This final form of patriarchy has made men enemies of women by legitimizing male tyranny and violence, the statement underlined. The Kurdish women's freedom movement has, with its long freedom struggle, made every day and 8th of March a day of freedom and resistance. For 35 years, it has carried out a women's revolution in the freedom line and leadership of the Sahras and Zilans. Kurdish women have taken possession of the most precious values created by the world women's movement over hundreds of years, adding and crowning the struggle with a women's revolution. The revolution advancing in Rojava is a magnificent women's revolution. It is a revolution based on the philosophy of a democratic nation and expressing itself in a democratic autonomous system, a revolution in which all social groups can live freely and equally. As this revolution spreads through the region and the world, women and peoples will become free. Our freedom struggle, rising under the leadership of Kurdish women, takes as a basis our leaders' philosophy. A revolution that does not free women is not a revolution, and is waging a struggle for freedom and equality for all women and realizing the construction of a democratic nation with free women. In this context, the For a Democratic Nation with Free Women campaign, launched by the Women's Freedom Movement, has great significance and adds historical value to this year's 8th of March.
Now let's briefly look at short history of 8th of March International Women's Day. According to sources, the earliest Women's Day observances were held on many different dates.
In August 1910, an international women's conference was organized to precede the general meeting of the Socialist Second International in Copenhagen. Inspired in part by the American socialists, German socialist Louis Stritz proposed the establishment of an annual International Women's Day and was seconded by fellow socialist and later communist leader Clara Zetkin, although no date was specified at that conference. 100 women delegates from 17 countries agreed with the idea as a strategy to promote equal rights, including suffrage for women. The following year, on March 19, 1911, IWD was marked for the first time by over 1 million people in Austria, Denmark, Germany and Switzerland. In the Austro-Hungarian Empire alone, there were 300 demonstrations. In Vienna, women paraded on the Ringstrasse and carried banners honoring the martyrs of the Paris Commune. Women demanded that women be given the right to vote and to hold public office. They also protested against employment sex discrimination. Americans continue to celebrate National Women's Day on the last Sunday in February. Female members of the Australian Builders Labourers Federation marched on International Women's Day 1975 in Sydney. In 1913, Russian women observed their first International Women's Day on the last Sunday in February by Julian calendar and used in Russia. Although there were some women-led strikes, marches and other protests in the year leading up to 1914, none of them happened on 8th of March. In 1914, International Women's Day was held on 8th of March, possibly because that day was a Sunday, and now it is always held on 8th of March in all countries. The 1914 observance of the day in Germany was dedicated to women's right to vote, which German women did not win until 1918. In 1917, demonstrations marking International Women's Day in St. Petersburg on the last Sunday in February, which fell on 8th of March on the Gregorian calendar, initiated the February Revolution. Women in St. Petersburg went on strike that day for bread and peace, demanding the end of World War I and an end to Russian food shortages. Leon Trotsky wrote, 23 February, 8th of March, was International Women's Day and meetings and actions were foreseen. But we did not imagine that this Women's Day would inaugurate the revolution. Revolutionary actions were foreseen but without date. But in morning, despite the orders to the contrary, textile workers left their work in several factories and sent delegates to ask for support of the strike, which led to mass strike. All went out into the streets. Following the October Revolution, the Bolshevik Alexander Kollontai persuaded Vladimir Lenin to make it an official holiday in the Soviet Union, and it was established but was a working day until 1965. From its official adoption in Russia following the Soviet Revolution in 1917, the holiday was predominantly celebrated in communist and socialist countries. It was celebrated by the communists in China from 1922 and by Spanish communists from 1936. In the West, International Women's Day was first observed as a popular event after 1977, when the United Nations General Assembly invited member states to proclaim 8th of March as the UN Day for Women's Rights and World Peace.
International Women's Day was celebrated in the media defense areas by Kurdish women guerrillas. Women guerrillas celebrated this day by performing folk dances and singing folk songs.
روزا تکوشینه ما بدل کی گله کی گران جبو کو افروز به واته خو بگینه ما بدل کی گله کی گران دا ادی تکوشین آزادی جن گیشته قناغ کی کو بر به شورش ودچه روزا ایرو 8 آداره کو دروشمه به جن آزاد بر به نتوا دموکراتیک ودچه کجن کم بونه به جوش و هیجانه که مزن وی روژه پیروز دکن ام جتوای جنین کود وی روژه ده که خواهیهاندن افدو به جوشه که مزن پیروز دکن و بریار خوی تکوشینه ددن گشتی سر ناوی بریارگاه ناوندی یه جاستر از هر داوی دیسا وی روژه لتوای اولان پیروز دکم و تکوشینه وده سرکفتن دخوازم
On the other hand, violence, persecution and rape against women is continuing to increase. Religion and traditions are the most widespread reasons for this repression. According to a recent study published by the EU Agency for Fundamental Rights, 6,000 women suffer from female genital mutilation every day.
The world's population is over 7 billion and 4 children are born every second. While there should be a similar number of female and male children born, in reality the figure is 107 boys for every 100 girls. The reason for this is that in many countries sons are preferred to daughters. In particular in China, where there's a one-child per family law, and in India, where girls' families have to pay dowries, discriminatory abortion is implemented despite it being illegal. Many organizations, such as the United Nations and Amnesty International, highlight violence against women. According to a recent study published by the European Union Agency for Fundamental Rights, tens of millions of women in Europe have suffered physical, sexual and psychological violence. Religion and tradition used as a basis for persecution. In countries dominated by tradition or religious values, women have lifestyles imposed on them by men. Women in Muslim countries such as Iran, Pakistan and Sudan, and in South America, where Catholicism combines with traditional values, and Asian countries like India are shown as an example of this. According to Amnesty International, violence against women is the most frequently seen violation of human rights worldwide. Sexual violence is also used as part of warfare in regions in conflict. While Amnesty makes clear that sexual violence against women is widespread all over the world, an incident of mass rape that occurred in India last year is highlighted. Another horrendous practice carried out on women is female genital mutilation. Worldwide, this between 120 and 150 million women are thought to have been subjected to this inhuman practice, with more than 6,000 new victims being added to this total every day. FGM causes permanent injury to young girls and destroys their future sex lives. FGM as practiced in Africa is also carried out in Europe, despite being illegal. Prostitution has been highlighted as one of the most significant means used in the continuing exploitation of women in the 21st century. More than 500,000 women are brought to Europe alone every year and forced to work as prostitutes. In the last 10 years, women from Eastern Europe countries and from Africa and Asia coming to Europe with the hope of finding work have been targeted by gangs in the prostitution sector. Millions of women leaving their homelands for economic reasons are being forced to get to know this means of exploitation of the modern world.
Two families from Rojava who wanted to enter Turkey over the border with Cizre district of Shirnak at the evening night hours of Friday were fired at by gendarmerie nearby Katran, Bazık village. 3 members of the families were wounded with the bullets of soldiers, according to sources. 2 of them were women and 1 male. The wounded Rojava citizens were taken to Cizre hospital by the villagers. After the reports of incident, the Peace and Democracy Party BDP Shirnak MP Faisal Sarıyıldız and the BDP delegation went to the hospital and investigated the event. Kurdish Al-Aqrat front fighters have launched essential operations against the Islamic States of Iraq and Shaham ISIS in the Manbij town of Syria's second largest city, Aleppo. In a statement about the operation, Al-Aqrat Front Press Office said the operation has targeted the Ahrar Syrian brigades and an ISIS headquarters, Al-Hayya, located 15 kilometers from the Manbij town. According to the statement, 4 ISIS members were killed and 3 others were captured alive in the operation. 3 militants of the gang's groups were confirmed to be citizens of Germany, Egypt and Lebanon. There have been taken place severe clashes between Syrian opposition groups and ISIS since the beginning of 2014. Clashes have left thousands from both sides dead. On the other hand, gangs of Islamic State of Iraq and Shaham ISIS attacks Fiyunte village of Grisby, and clashes broke out between ISIS and YPG People's Defense units in the village. Press office of YPG reported that gangs groups of ISIS have been bombarding the village since last night, and YPG units arrived at the village and repulsed the attackers. It is also reported that one of the ISIS members killed as a result of the clashes. The biggest demonstration against the ecological destruction being carried out in the Kurdish region has now been continuing for 1 week. Support for the Mustafa Malkoch Ecology Camp at the Hevzel Garden is growing every day.
The vigil launched by the BDP Youth Assembly in protest at the destruction of trees in the 8,000-year-old Hevzel Gardens in the city of Diyarbakir, which has been proposed for the UNESCO World Heritage List, is in its 7th day. The vigil is continuing in the same determined way it began, with the mass support of the Dicle University Student Union. The most striking aspect of the camp dedicated to Mustafa Malkoch, who sacrificed himself by self-immolation on the banks of the river Tigris on 15th of February 2011 in protest at the capture of PKK leader Abdullah Öcalan, is the natural communal life established there. Everything at the camp, from the form of the vigil to the layout of the camp, from the basic needs of the camp to education and social activities, is entirely in harmony with the environment. As for the vigil, the prominent characteristic is friendship. A temporary road and bridge have been built from trees cut down on the instructions of the university rector's office to facilitate access to the site, which has become marshy, an account of the university pumping sewage. The first message from the ecological protesters was to call the road by the name of Dicle University student Aydın Erdem, who was killed in Diyarbakir on 6th of December, and to name the bridge after 19-year-old Murat İzol, who drowned in the Tigris while fleeing police on 28th of March 2013. The protest began with 15 young people and has now been visited by thousands. In addition to support from LGBT, anarchist and partisan groups, civil organizations such as KASK and TMMOB has also set up tents at the site of the vigil. New banners erected at the site include "Nature is life, not a resource," "No to nuclear power stations and dams," and "Kurdistan is the cradle of civilization." The most striking tents at the site are the ecology and genealogy. Jen is woman in Kurdish tents. As time passes, the Mustafa Malkoch Ecology Camp Vigil is becoming more organized and disciplined. As night fell on the 5th day, a large fire was lit, and fires were also lit at 2 points in the camp to ensure security. The young people sat around the fire with members of the Diyarbakir Peace Mothers Assembly, who have supported the vigil from the start. The young people shared the food they had cooked on the fire, while debate and conversation continued. Traditional songs were sung by both the young people and the mothers, leading to outpourings of emotion, and folk dances performed around the fire created a colorful scene. As the night grew colder, the flames continued to shoot high into the air, and conversation and debate continued unabated in the early hours of the morning. Apart from those protecting the camp, the young people awoke after a few hours' sleep with a smile and a rojbash, "Good morning." After cleaning the site, work sharing continued with some lighting and the fire, the others preparing breakfast. Others repaired the route for visitors, the Aydın Erdem Road and the Murat İzol Bridge. After a short time, everything was made ready. It was observed that the camp's uninvited guests deployed on the hill opposite the camp. The police had also got up early, and that loud music was blaring from their vehicle. After the police had eventually succeeded in lighting their fire, it was observed that they began breakfast with the young people. After breakfast, the first visitors to the camp were high school students, whose numbers have been increasing by the day.
Turkey's Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan hinted that his government may shut down Facebook and YouTube after March 30 local elections.
What he says avert negative effects of internet on society, a move would likely spark public backlash given the mounting social unrest and uneasiness over government's growing encroachment on people's lives and media. Erdogan raised the issue when he was talking about the controversial internet law, which has drawn wide criticism and condemnation from critics and the EU in a live televised interview jointly aired on A Haber and ATV late Thursday, and said the government would consider shutting down popular video sharing website YouTube and social media network Facebook. This comes as the government introduced a number of legislations curbing internet freedom, press freedom, and subordinating judiciary to government through restructuring the Supreme Board of Judges and Prosecutors, top legal body that regulates judicial affairs, including launching disciplinary inquiries to top judges and appointment of prosecutors and judges. When the news report exploded on social media, it led to raging debates on Twitter, with critics expressing their concerns over the direction of the country. BDP co-chair Selahattin Demirtaş reacted to PM Erdogan talks about YouTube and Facebook in a meeting of Amer. And he said that, first of all, Mr. Erdogan must shut his mouth.
Istanbul 20th High Criminal Court ordered the release of İlker Başbuğ, Turkey's jailed ex-military chef with an Ergenekon case, after the Constitutional Court ruling about his rights have been violated. Istanbul 20th High Criminal Court ordered the release of İlker Başbuğ, Turkey's jailed ex-military chef with an Ergenekon case, after the Constitutional Court ruling about his rights have been violated. Currently jailed in Silivri prison, Başbuğ has been arrested on January 6, 2012, serving in prison more than 2 years. Previously, Turkey's Constitutional Court ruled that İlker Başbuğ's rights to personal liberty and security have been violated, according to the Constitutional Article 19, Paragraph 8. Also harassed in trial suspect Erhan Tunel and 5 suspects released pending trial in Zirve trial. Upon the request by lawyers of 5 suspects in the Zirve trial into the 2007 murders of 3 missionaries at the office of the Bible publishing company in Malatya province, a court decided to release all 5 suspects who have been jailed for 7 years pending trial. Three years of civil war has devastated the lives of an entire generation of children in Syria. The tragedy of Syrian refugee children and those trapped inside Syria is cost the lives of more than 11 children and turned more than 1 million into refugees. On the video that has been published by Save Children, you can see the horror which is portrayed in Syria.
Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish.
Granny.
Hello. Have you done your homework?
Ada.
For a general strike.
Ready or not?
Here it comes.
Violent clashes with Britain.
Live ammunition against...
Deserve to get shot.
Have a nice day, Mum.
Airstrikes on rebel position.
We are going to stay.
Heavy fighting in Richmond.
Where are we?
Rebel forces advance.
Happy birthday to you. Make a wish, darling.
Who knew that something as universal as a billboard could be created a clean water for people? University of Engineering and Technology of Peru created this, a simply and amazing with a new technology. Let's watch it together.
And to the University of Engineering and Technology of Peru, which was looking for something splashy to kick off its application period for 2013 enrollment. It turned to ad agency Mayo Draft FCB, which struck on the idea of a billboard that would convert Lima's H2O saturated air into potable water. And then they actually built one. It's a billboard that can generate up to 26 gallons of water a day from nothing but air. The billboard pictured here is real. It's located in Lima, Peru, and it produces around 100 liters of water a day from nothing more than humidity, a basic filtration system, and a little gravitational ingenuity. Lima is the second largest desert city in the world after Cairo. Lima is also part of what's called a coastal desert. It lies at the northern edge of the Atacama, the driest desert in the world, meaning the city sees perhaps half an inch of precipitation annually. Lima sits along the southern Pacific Ocean. The humidity in the city averages 83%. It's actually closer to 100% in the mornings. According to Mayo Draft FCB, the billboard has already produced 9,450 liters of water in just 3 months, which it says equals to water consumption of hundreds of families per month.
This was it from us for tonight. We will see you next week on Thursday. Thanks for watching us. Goodbye.